So we want to thank the candidates for coming tonight. We really appreciate them taking out time. I think one, I forget who mentioned that you have been doing something every single night. So really do appreciate them taking the time with us. And also we want to thank Neighbor to Neighbor program for partnering with us. I would encourage you to stop in and talk to them today. There's some information about their program. It really is a way to connect the different areas. For example, I work in the La Sierra area, and Anija Koji works up at the other end of La Sierra. So it gives me an opportunity to know who my neighbors are and let them know about community events and community issues. Most people are concerned about national politics, but as I said, our lives are really affected by local politics. As an informed electorate, we really are a strong electorate. So tonight I hope you get a lot of information that will help you make the right choices in our voting that's coming up right now. I know that most of you have your ballots. And so I hope everyone has got an opportunity to write down questions. Anija Koji is going to collect them. The reason we're doing the writing down questions is a lot of people are a little bit intimidated to stand up and talk in public. And this allows us to give you the opportunity to not have to do that. Anita's going to do it. So if you have written down a question and haven't given it to her, please do that. Tonight what we're going to do, I'll just give you an agenda so you know what's coming and when it's going to end. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have someone come, Tammy Norman's going to come and talk to us about the ballot and kind of go over what you're getting in the mail. Each one of the candidates will then give their background, and we've given them 2 questions ahead of time that they're going to answer. That will be about 5 minutes for each person. And then Anita will read all her questions. So this really will be an informative, quick meeting. We're trying to get out by 7:30. That way, if we all want to go outside and we want to talk to the candidates, if they want to stay around and have that opportunity. Also, they close at 8, so we got to get all this stuff out of here. Yeah. Okay, so would everybody stand? Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So what we're going to do today is give everybody an opportunity. Anita's going to time you, so try to put it under 5 minutes, or 5 minutes or less. So we'll just start putting this in, and you can tell me your name, and give your background, and you're the best person to introduce yourself, I think. And then answer those 2 questions.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Jason Stone. I'm a Deputy District Attorney, and I'm currently running for Judge seat number 26. And so the 4 of us here are all running for separate seats. If you have your ballots with you right now, you can actually see who our opponents are and how they're all broken down. We're not running against each other. We're running, helping each other out. We're running together on a slate to try to help advance public safety and public safety's interests in Riverside County. I am born and raised in Temecula, California. My family has been in the Riverside County area since the 70s, and both of my parents were involved in service from a very young age. We were raised going to soup kitchens on holidays, being involved in passing out holiday gifts for less fortunate, Boy Scouts, Little League. We were always involved. It was something that was instilled in me and my sister from a very, very young age. That it's our duty, our civic responsibility to always give back to the community however we can. And so in 2006, after I graduated law school, I started a career of service in the district attorney's office. I was hired by Grover Trask and worked under him for just a little bit. Then Rod Pacheco, Paul Zellerbach, and now Mike Hestrin as DAs. I've spent a lot of my career in southwest area of the county in the Murrieta Courthouse, but I've also spent 5 years in the Indio Courthouse. I've spent time up in Riverside. The last 2 years have been in Banning, and the rest of my time in South Oaks. So I kind of travel around the county wherever I'm needed. Most of my career has been prosecuting sexual assault, child abuse, and human trafficking cases. They are some of the most difficult cases to work through from an emotional standpoint as you're working with kids and trying to get them through the hardest time of their life. Sometimes it's preparing them for court. I just finished a trial last week. Multiple victims, 7 years old, being molested by their mother's boyfriend. And they were under pressure to kind of recant their story, but I was able to work with them, politely point out their lies and get the jury to see right through it. And the jury ultimately convicted the guy, who's now looking at up to 80 years to life in state prison. So these cases have been a huge passion of mine. More than half of my career has been spent prosecuting them. It comes kind of easy for me. I do have 5 kids with my wife. So we have 8 months, 3 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old, and a 20-year-old. And so, you know, whatever the situation is, I feel able to interact with the children and make them feel welcome and comfortable and just get them talking. And sometimes that's really all you need, is to make them feel that they're in a safe place. So I have prosecuted a lot of other types of cases: murders, robberies, home invasion, burglaries, you name it, I've prosecuted it throughout my career, but I really have specialized in the sexual assault child abuse area. I'm running for judge because a few years ago I saw a judge doing something improper in court. He was treating a defendant poorly. And I realized that even as a prosecutor, it's our job to always ensure that the right thing is done in court, no matter what that is. Sometimes it means dismissing a case, sometimes it means giving the person probation, and sometimes it means sending them away for the rest of their life in state prison. But when I saw the judge acting a certain way towards a defendant, I thought, you know what, this isn't right. We need better judges. We need people who are responsible. We need people who can follow the law. And so I decided that I was actually going to put in my my application for an appointment from the governor. But if you haven't noticed, my last name is Stone. Former county supervisor and state senator Jeff Stone is my dad. And he's a Republican rabble-rouser. And he's been up in Sacramento fighting the governor tooth and nail, and it became a problem for the governor. I was naive enough to actually think that my own qualifications would be enough. But it wasn't. It turns out it actually is a political process. And I don't meet what the governor wants in judges. And so this past fall, we kind of realized that there were going to be 3, maybe 4 judges. Ultimately, there were 4 who decided to retire in their election year. When the judges do that, it takes the power away from the governor and puts it in the hands of the voters. So the voters get to decide who's replacing the judges that are retiring in their election year, not the governor. So I saw the opportunity to do what I wanted to do after 3 years of waiting on Sacramento to do nothing with me. I decided enough's enough, I'm going to run. I think I'll be a fair judge. One of the things we do as prosecutors is we always make sure we're doing the right thing no matter what. And we all 4 of us agree with that. We all 4 promise to do that. You know, I will uphold the Constitution, and I think the most important thing is that whoever comes into court will be given a fair opportunity and a meaningful opportunity to be heard, and will restore faith in the justice system here in Riverside County. So thank you so much again for coming out tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Kathy and Anita for the opportunity to introduce ourselves. My name is Natalie Lowe. I am the Senior Deputy District Attorney with the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. Like Jason, I have been in the DA's office. I'm sorry, speak louder. Like Jason, I have been in the DA's office.
A year and 8
No, I apologize.
I thought you were going to have a microphone.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry we don't have microphones.
I'm sorry.
No,
I know everybody here.
I will speak up. I apologize.
Thank you.
I've been in the DA's office for over 15 years. And over that 15 years, I have prosecuted a wide range of cases, everything from rape, murder, child molestation, and death penalty litigation. For the last 10 years, I have been in our appellate unit, where I basically watched judges step in it for the last 10 years. And that doesn't make me a legal encyclopedia or think that I can do better necessarily, but where I see them get it wrong is they put their ego into it, right? So many times, I think the 4 of us would collectively agree that you've been yelled at for no reason, you've been mistreated, or they don't take the time to prepare and get it right because they think they know the answer even though they don't. That's where I see smart people who are capable of getting it right, get it wrong. I think what I've learned from that process is I know what I don't know, and that's quite a lot. I think that we need to take the time as judicial officers, learn what we don't know, prepare, be on time. As basic as that sounds, you would think that that would be a no-brainer, but reality is they aren't always on time, they don't start on time. And understand that if someone's in front of you, that's everyone's worst day. I mean, one of the difficult things for me in deciding to do this, and why I decided to do this, was for the reasons Jason has mentioned, was I know that I'm never going to be appointed. I am a prosecutor, and for some reason, prosecutors are simply not being appointed. We have an important perspective that is missing from the bench, given our experience in public safety. We understand what it means to interact with victims. We have seen things we can't unsee, and we understand that by the grace of God, but we are lucky not to be victims of crime. That's a very important perspective that for some reason is absent. However, I didn't know if I could turn off that advocacy piece. You know, you're an advocate for 15 years. I didn't know, can I turn it off and be fair? Because I think the most important duty of a judge is what I just talked about, is can you be fair, give everyone their chance to be heard, and be respectful. Those are to me the basic components that any judge needs to adhere to. And I thought back to a time when I had to grow as a person, and I thought, okay, can I now switch gears and turn this off? And about a year ago, my eldest son, he's 4, I have a 4 and 2-year-old, Walter, was diagnosed with autism. So at that point, I was tasked with dealing with someone whom I loved more than life itself, but I struggled to communicate with, and I had difficulty reaching him on the level where he was. And what I found worked best for him, and loud voices are a particular trigger for him, what I found worked best when he was, you know, by virtue of the way that he perceives the world differently than I do, by virtue of his neurodiversity, was if I stayed calm and enforced the rules and met him where he was. And I think that any good judge needs to do those exact things, and I realized that was a skill set I could then transfer to being an effective bench officer, and that's remaining calm. You know, treating everyone with respect, still enforcing the rules, but meeting them where they are and giving them their dignity. So that's my experience, that's what I'm running, and I hope that you elect me. I'm running for seat number 4, and I think that the 4 of us together, we're a missing voice, and please vote for us.
Hi everyone, my name is Christy Kirk, and I've been a deputy district attorney going on 17 years with Riverside County. I came straight out of law school and was hired by Kroger Trask specifically for the desert area. So my entire career has been out in the desert in the Indian courthouse. I started like any prosecutor, misdemeanors, and then really focused on domestic violence. And then primarily I focused on breaking up gangs and putting murderers away. For about 10 years, I practiced civil and criminal litigation within our office, really looking at gangs and seeing how we could give our communities back to our citizens and allow them to utilize everything that this great county has. And so in the desert, we did a few gang injunctions, just really trying to target communities that were infected with gang violence and give that back to our citizens, our parks back to our children, our stores back to the businesses. So that was about 10 years of my life, so I was able to prosecute in civil court as a district attorney as well as in criminal court. For 4 years, I focused on vehicular homicide, and those were some of the most soul-wrenching cases that I honestly have had the opportunity to prosecute. It was ordinary citizens driving down our streets that were taken too soon by selfish choices of impaired drivers. And I'll be honest that those cases were hard for multiple reasons, not just because our victims were just tragically taken, but those defendants' families were also affected because they were a simple decision to drive impaired affected 2 families on both sides. And having to face the moms on both sides, having to face the family on both sides, and knowing at the end of the day, regardless of the verdict, both sides would never be whole. In 2019, I was awarded Mad Prosecutor of the Year for the time I put into that unit. And looking back over the course of my 17 years, that unit has been one of the most, the one that made the most impression on my soul, if that makes any sense. I'm currently assigned to the homicide unit. I'm currently in trial on a special circumstance homicide that's going to take me to probably now August. So I fight the fight in court, and I try to get the worst of the worst off of our streets. I decided to be, well, I've always wanted to be a judge. This is where I saw myself. This is where I wanted. And I'll be honest with you, I gave up on this dream. I gave up on it because I saw over and over again we weren't going to get a fair opportunity to be appointed in the state. And we are told that we're not allowed to tell you, we're not gonna be able to tell you today what our political party is. This is an impartial race, and so we're not allowed to tell you what we are. But if you go to the governor's website, you can check and see who's been appointed, and he's allowed to tell you who he appoints. And so, the biggest and most naive thing I think I faced in this is that it wasn't supposed to be political, and this wasn't a political race, and I'll tell you what it is. And our voices are missing from the bench, and it matters. Over the course of the last few years, the sentencing has left the discretion of the district attorney, and it now solely resides with the judges. And so what used to be, you shall be sentenced to this, is, I'll use my discretion and I'll let you know if I want to. And so on homicides, where people use guns, the court has the discretion now to add on the additional time for making the choice to pull that trigger and take somebody's life. And over again, over the last few years, I've noticed that that punishment has not been being applied. And our victims' voices and our society's voices are missing from the bench. And so the four of us this year took the courage to run for these positions, deputy district attorneys, who, I'll be honest, other than Jason, has no idea what happens in politics, and it's been an eye-opening experience. But all we can do is come before you and be genuine, and show you who we are. And the biggest thing that we've realized is nobody's ever done this for you before. Nobody's ever come and explained to you what the judges are and why they matter, and that you get to make this decision. And so we're taking this opportunity now to present ourselves to you and hope that we earn your respect and hope that we earn your votes. A little bit about me: I have a husband. He's a probation officer in the desert. We met out there. We have 2 children, Hayden, a 9-year-old boy, and Hazel, otherwise known as Hurricane Hazel, a 4-year-old girl who is a beautiful disaster and reminds me every morning to handle life with grace and smiles, but also all the things I did to my parents growing up. I think the most important thing for a judge to do is have a respectful courtroom. Show up on time and show people that you're not a judge in the sense of I get to do whatever I want, but that you're there for the people. And those people are there on their worst. And I don't think there's ever a time where somebody wants to come to court. Either way. So if you can show up on time and show them that respect, I think that's step 1. I think step 2 is being prepared. Knowing your calendar, knowing your emotions. Don't waste people's time. They're there at the worst times. And I think a judicial temperament is one of the most important things that exists in the courtroom. Because I'll tell you what, we're stressed out to the max. The defense is stressed out, the defendants are stressed out, the plaintiffs are stressed, everybody is stressed out in that situation. And the last thing that needs to happen is a judge adding to that stress. There is a way to hold people accountable with grace. And that is what I offer you. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for allowing us to come out and get before you and let you learn a little bit about us. And that's what it's about. When you're going into this election year, I want to make sure that everyone knows as much as they do in making a decision that's going to affect the judicial race in the county of Riverside. I've been a deputy district attorney for 15 years. During that 15-year period, I spent most of it, about 10 years of it, prosecuting cartels. I prosecuted it on the state level, and there was also a need on the federal level. I was also designated as a special assistant United States attorney, where I prosecuted the cartels on the federal level. In the past few years, I've kind of moved away from that, and now I've been focused on gangs and homicide, like Christy. That's where I just got out of a month-long special search homicide trial. Throughout my course of 15 years, you learn about your character, your ethics, your integrity, and your work ethic. And they're the most important things that you have. And that's what we want to take, all of us want to take to the bench. We all have that high level of integrity, that high level of work ethic and character. A little about me is, besides being a prosecutor, I believe in community service. Not only do you give back through work, etc., but you need to get involved with the community. I coach a 12U travel ball baseball team. I'm getting ready to take these kids to New York coming up in a few weeks. Also, one of my really good friends, Detective Dorado from the Riverside Police Department, he started Ray Cross Boxing Gym. And it was basically to get in front of some kids that were at risk, some of these youth at risk, and to show them there's a life outside of the streets. Try to get in touch with them before they got into the gang. So I would go over and catch mission with these kids and try to talk to them and try to educate them on seeing that there is another side. And hopefully that reached out. We had some issues with COVID. It really kind of got in between the ability for us to do that. But now that things are changing, we're hoping to start and get back to that. One of the reasons that I decided to run for a judge is because my whole career has been about public service. I've done this for the people of Riverside County. I've never done it for notoriety. I've never done it for fame. I've always tried to hold myself out as a silent professional. But it came to a point where it just wasn't right. And what we were seeing in the courts is the judges not following the law. And that's why all four of us decided, you know what, we need to bring balance back to the bench. And we need judges that are going to follow the law. And that's why we decided to step up and put ourselves into this political arena. We've never been in this. We're trial attorneys. But we think it's about time that we stood up and said, you know what, we need these laws, we have them, but we need to enforce them. And one of the most important things I see as a judge is the Constitution. I'm a firm believer in the Constitution. I am an originalist. I believe that following the Constitution that was written by our forefathers with that same intent. And it needs to be followed. It's not a living Constitution. It doesn't change because of the current mood of society or what we're currently seeing. You have to stick with what our forefathers intended when they wrote the Constitution. I believe in following the laws as they're enacted, not what I want them to be, but what they are. And I think as a judicial officer, that is the most important thing, is upholding the Constitution as well as enforcing the laws as they are. And that's why I'm running for judge. I had a long discussion with Judge Mac Fisher, whose seat I'm running for. He's retired. At the end of that discussion, I made the decision that I am going to run. I am endorsed by Judge Mac Fisher, as we are all endorsed by every law enforcement agency in Riverside County, Judge DA Mike Hestred, Sheriff Chad Bianco, our union, the Riverside District Attorney Association Union. So that kind of tells you where we stand for. And I just want to thank you again for this opportunity to get in front of you. If you have any issues or questions, want to know more about us, I encourage you to go to our webpages, go to our social media, follow our social media, share it. That's how we get the word out. Share it with your friends so that people can learn about us and get more educated as we go into this election. Thank you.
So I'm going to give a chance for Tammy Norman to talk, and if you have a question that you didn't turn in, would you raise up your card, and Anita will try to pick those up. Anybody have any questions that they didn't write down to Anita?
Does anybody need a card? So
Yeah,
I might
yeah.
question. I know people got them. Now's the time.
Hello. My number is, you all have received your county guide for the election primary. Just a couple of quick notes. There are no more polling locations. You'll have to look in the front of the book to find where you can vote within your city. We are a voter choice act county now, meaning you can vote anywhere within the county of Riverside. So you don't have to go to your polling location. So and polls, actually in-person voting starts May 28th. Reduced like 9 to 5 up until June 7th, and then it goes 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on June 7th, the actual day of the primary. The candidates all have statements in the guide. Read about them. Their websites are there. If you want more information about them, they're all great. Follow them all on social media because they do engage and they tell you what they're doing and what they stand for. If you didn't get enough here, you'll get it on their social media. The ballot, it is by chance, or you should have had it in the mail by now too, but if you haven't, it will come. The registrar voter said there's so many of them now that they have to mail them out in increments. So 2 pages, our candidates are listed on page 2, on the back side of page 2. So make sure you fill in the bubbles and turn it in. You get to vote for all 4 offices. It's not just one, you get to vote for all 4. So remember primary, we need to get as many people out. If you've got friends that aren't here tonight, tell out these wonderful candidates, get the word out, have them tell 10 people, you tell 10 people, and we need to show up and vote on June 7th. And if you have any more questions, I'll be up here when the meeting's over.
Okay, so Anita's gonna ask the questions, and I'm gonna time you.
I thought there was another question they had. There was two questions. They answered both? Okay, okay. Okay, so somebody asked, sorry. What is your judicial philosophy or constitutional matters? I'll say it again, okay? What is your judicial philosophy or constitutional matters? I think I'm saying that right.
Do you want two people to
I'm,
answer?
I'm so sorry, on constitutional. I don't have my glasses on, so forgive me, on constitutional matters.
Yeah, I kind of touched on that at the end of when I was talking about. And I think we all stand for the Constitution. There's no question about it. It goes, like I talked about, it's not, the Constitution doesn't change with the times. It has to go by the black letter, the textualism of what it says. And it has to be interpreted by the courts of the United States, the United States Supreme Court. And you follow that. That's the law. And you follow the Constitution. And I think as a judicial officer, that is so important. I've seen judges not follow the law, not follow the Constitution, and try to change it to what they want it to read, rather than what it actually does read. And that's where, and that was one of the motivating, driving factors for my decision to run for judge.
I think you're looking at 4 candidates here that firmly believe in the Constitution and have continuously seen judges not have the courage to make tough calls. A judge is up for re-election every 6 years, but in this county, nobody ever challenges incumbent judges because it's a hard race. It's a county-wide race. We are fortunate enough that we get to run together, but when you have that, you get a certain sense of complacency or lack of courage to make the tough calls. There have been a few judges in this county that have said that these laws coming in are unconstitutional, and they have gone up. I think you're looking at four advocates that are going to follow the Constitution, enforce the law, and not be afraid to use the courage to maybe be the only ones doing that in this county.
And I would agree with Christy. The entire thing that I was thinking of is the courage to make an unpopular decision. We talked earlier about how only certain types of attorneys are being appointed through the process for the governor, right? Well, guess who's tasked with enforcing the law? Signed by the governor, right? So it's kind of a neat party trick when you are controlling who is appointed, and then you have kind of your own legislative agenda. You have to be willing as a judicial officer to understand that the United States Constitution is first and foremost, and the laws that are coming out of Sacramento do not jive with the United States Constitution. To have the courage to say that is not constitutional, you have to be willing to stand up and make that decision. And I think all 4 of us are willing to do that.
Absolutely. One of the things that a lot of people forget is that victims' rights are enshrined in the California Constitution as well. All 4 of us have been endorsed by Crime Victims United for our advocacy on behalf of victims. And sometimes we see that victims' rights are ignored, that their thoughts and concerns are ignored by the judges making decisions. So the U.S. Constitution, without a doubt, is the source of our government. We have to follow the U.S. Constitution. We have to follow the laws as they're written. It's our job not to legislate from the bench, but to follow the law, apply the facts that we have to what the law says, and make a decision based on that. Nothing more, nothing less. Whether it's popular or unpopular, it doesn't matter. Whether it's partisan or nonpartisan, that doesn't matter. We just have to apply the law, apply the Constitution to our set of facts, and render the best decision we possibly can.
Okay. What's your opinion on the Second Amendment and gun control?
Sure. I'll start on that one if that's okay. I'm a firearms owner myself. My guns have never killed any person. I think one of the things that we always look at is to hold people accountable for their actions. Guns don't usually fire on their own. Usually it's someone who's negligently storing it or they're a bad actor and they shouldn't have had a gun in the first place. I've prosecuted several felons in possessions of firearms. There are ghost guns out there. We have to have responsible laws to stop the people from having them who aren't supposed to have them, who are dangerous, who have used them in domestic violence or prior crimes. But responsible gun ownership, like myself, there's nothing wrong with it. I firmly believe in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
And I would agree, and we're also a firearm owning family. We in fact have owned AR-15 before they were outlawed. We are grandfathered in, and we are responsible owners. We have 2 young children. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old. Guess what? They don't touch our firearms, right? They are locked in a safe. The ammunition is stored separately, and it's locked away as well. There is simply no reason that we shouldn't have the right to bear arms. It's absolutely our Second Amendment right.
Our household owns guns. I grew up in Northern California. My dad taught me how to hunt. I think that everybody has a right to own guns. I don't think that gun control is going to control the people who are already not supposed to have them, having them. I do agree with Jason that we need laws in place to prosecute people that are not supposed to be in possession of guns. But everybody has a right to own a gun. I think it comes down to just education and gun safety and responsible gun ownership. But I absolutely believe in the Second Amendment.
And yeah, absolutely, on those marks, it's in the Constitution. It's the Second Amendment. It's how it's written, the right to bear arms. I'm a gun owner. I have guns in my house. I have young children. I have a 12-year-old son. I educate my family on guns, and that's what it's about. And it is to get the guns out of the people that aren't supposed to have the guns. But as the citizens, the law-abiding citizens of the United States, we should have the right to bear arms under the Second Amendment.
And I've got a question. I'm a gun owner also, and as a kid growing in California, I did my hunting. But guns of warfare, should they be allowed to be owned by?
Can we just have, I need to read the questions because other people.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, we just want
The
everybody
reason
to-
why is if we go over, it's $25 an hour. Just saying.
You want to take up a donation?
Yeah, I'm kind of cheap, okay? But bring your question up if you want. Okay, so this is a hard one, guys. All 4 of you work for the Riverside DA at present. Any of you care to comment on why 65 years worth of, I'm gonna blow this word, prosecutional experience wants to leave the DA's office?
I'll take that one. Prior to making that decision to run for judge, I had a very long discussion with my dad. And I talked to him. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life. I'm in a really good spot. I get to prosecute the worst of the worst. I get, like Christy always says, the worst of the worst. I get to put people away for homicide. I get to protect the citizens of the United States. It's no better job. And that's how I've looked at it, and that's the way I always have. But there comes to a point, like I said before, that you have to, enough is enough. You have a great sheriff, Chad Bianco, that's out there enforcing the law. You have a really tough DA, Mike Hester, who's enforcing the law. And then your weakest link, though, is when you get to the court and the judges aren't enforcing the law. And so we needed to bring that balance back. So after these discussions with Mike, and he'll tell you, it's really hard for him to give up 65 years or whatever the number is of experience, but at the same time, it's for the benefit of the people of Riverside County. And so I think he'd stand behind that, and he has endorsed us, and for that very reason.
I don't think that I can recall a time in the last 17 years that 4 judicial spots have opened at the same time. And I don't know this for certain, but I think that some of the older judges are realizing that there needs to be a change. And so they're waiting for their election year, their 6th year, to give it back to you to decide. And so when I talked to Mike, I explained to him, look, like, I'm getting disheartened going to court and fighting for my victims and not getting them what they want. And I see this as a calling and a responsibility as a district attorney to continue on this path. And so while the office may be losing experience, I can tell you have a lot of young, talented district attorneys in that office that are going to take our places and fight just as hard as we do. But this is an important calling.
And I would second that. I mean, when this whole idea of trying to be a judge first came up, my first response was absolutely not. I have a 4-year-old. I like what I do, and my husband's also a DA in the office. We met in the office. We met a long time ago. We've been married 7 years, and so I thought, no, I like what I do. I work with my husband. talked about, that he realized that there were 4 open spots. And as I was a member of our union, and we had someone reach out to us, a defense attorney wanting our endorsement, and I said, absolutely not. While he's a lovely person, absolutely not, because he had a chance to get appointed. Our defense attorneys are appointed every year. We are not. So it was more of a call to service that we felt that our voice was missing, and we wanted to take the opportunity to get that balance out of the bench that Jay mentioned.
I'll just echo, I love my job. All right, I love being a deputy district attorney. I get to wake up every morning and go into court and fight for victims. Okay? This has absolutely nothing to do with anything in the office other than an ability to serve at a greater level. And we've been to several events with DA Hester where he said that. He's told everybody, electing us is more important for the greater Riverside County than it is for us to prosecute our handful of cases that we have, because we will be making decisions that will impact those types of cases for decades to come. And we'll be able to help more victims. We'll be able to follow the law. We'll be able to ensure that our convictions don't get overturned on appeal. It's not an ego, but we have to look and see, if it's not us from the DA's office, who will it be? And all of us have opponents that are endorsed by the Democratic Party. They could all be potentially appointed if they wanted to go that route instead. But if we don't step up, if we don't take this opportunity, it's going to be filled by people that you as voters aren't going to be happy with. So we had to take this opportunity and do it for the service of Riverside County.
Thank you. This question is regarding impaired drivers. Punishment for repeat offenders for DUI drivers when the second offense results in a death. Why is that not murder?
It is. It absolutely is.
Then why aren't they judging it as that?
I'm sorry?
They're putting it as vehicular manslaughter.
So
I'm not saying the first offense that if somebody was killed, he was .16.
Right.
My cousin's court date is tomorrow morning. He was killed on January 22nd. And he was convicted, he was stopped or whatever in September. 3 months later, he kills my cousin and left the scene. And I've been in contact with the Victorville DA, and I sent my impact statement along with the rest of my family and friends, with pictures and everything else about her. And we had discussed about a case that I found back in 1980s that was
Excuse me,
passed.
can you, like,
Real quick,
Virginia
real
birthdays?
quick, okay, real quick. But talking to the district attorney, they stated that it cannot be put down as murder, only as vehicular manslaughter.
So I cannot speak to Victorville, that's not.
I know,
Riverside
I
County.
understand that.
I can tell you in Riverside County, if you have a prior DUI, it's gonna be something really has had to happen evidentiary with the case for that not to be charged as a murder. It is up to the district attorney's discretion, but in my unit, especially out in the desert,
Is Victorville not the desert?
no, not
Okay.
my.
Wasn't
That's
sure.
San Bernardino County.
Okay. But they're saying that's from the state.
I can't comment on how they're interpreting
Yeah.
the law. I can just tell you in Riverside County that that's not how we interpret the law.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, good question. All right, here we go. Is there a plan and process for the homeless?
You better get that 25 bucks out.
I got him in my back pocket.
So not to take that, but as judicial candidates, we can't make laws. But we can tell you what we've seen as DAs, or having been DAs for the last more than a decade. And what we've seen is a lot of legal changes, right? We've seen Prop 47, Prop 57, they've decriminalized a lot of your narcotics and theft offenses, right? So you can go into Target or any kind of retail store, steal less than $950, or steal $949 worth of merchandise every day, every hour if you want, and it's nothing more than a misdemeanor. And that reality is that there's now no incentive to get better. There is no longer a punishment. They used to do something called petty theft with the prior, meaning you stole enough, you're going to prison. That no longer exists, right? Unless you have a super strike, I believe, in your background, which is basically you committed a horrible heinous offense, then maybe you can go to prison. But if you are an addict or somebody who is mentally unstable and you have mental health issues and you are self-medicating with narcotics, you're not getting the treatment plan that's no longer available to you, which was called Prop 36. There was mandatory treatment that people, honestly, under the threat of kind of custodial confinement, were like, you know, I'd rather get better than go to prison. That no longer exists as well. And I'm not saying that we need to lock everybody up who doesn't in our private events, but the reality is, if there are no treatment plans and they're no longer going to jail, there's no incentive to get better, and they're on the streets and they're homeless. So as judicial officers, we wouldn't be able to undo Prop 47 or Prop 57 or anything like that. What we can do is exercise the discretion that Christy mentioned. So all of the decision-making authority that was now stripped from our elected officials, right, with Prop 47, 57, that sentencing discretion has now been transferred to the judicial officers. So we, as judicial officers, would necessarily, well, we can't commit or promise that we would make a certain decision in any case that would be fact-specific. We can tell you that we would absolutely look through the lens of public safety as a priority.
The question was.
If you want to, if you have a question,
Right.
if you have a question, you have to write it
No,
down.
I just wanted,
No,
So
you
there's-
have to write it down. You have to write it
I
down.
want to follow up because one of the things that we've done as a DA's office has been very proactive in collaborative courts. Now it takes people who are willing to participate, but we do have a veterans court, for example, where if there's a vet who, you know, usually they fight, they serve, they come back, and they start suffering from some illness, and they're, you know, maybe they're out on the streets, maybe they're using drugs, they come into court, they're arrested. We want to give them a second chance. They fought for our country, they deserve that. And so there are specific judges who are assigned to those courts, and they bring in the Veterans Affairs. They bring in, you know, military type tactics to help these people get better. We have mental health courts. So for people who have diagnosed mental health diseases, we can work with the county to get additional resources for them to get them off of the streets. Some of the drug courts, they don't necessarily work the same way as they used to, but there are homeless courts. Again, intersection of mental health and criminal law isn't always the best place for people to get services, but it is something that as a judge, if you feel it's appropriate, you can send them to these specialized courts if they're willing and try to get them the help through other county agencies that have partnered with the court system to get them access to drugs, mental health services, rehabilitation, anything that they need to try to help them. We can do it if they're willing. And so we will have, in some ways, the ability to look, examine an individual and decide, are they a suitable candidate for any of these alternative courts to try to get them resources if they're low-level offenders. Hopefully, that helps take some homeless people off the street, steer them back in the right direction. That's the whole purpose. Will we get it right every time? No. But can we try? Absolutely. We can try when it's deemed appropriate.
Who deciphers where the money goes from the state for the
Okay,
homeless?
excuse me, can you please write down your questions? We're not gonna have.
Give me another piece of paper.
Here it is. You want me to want the whole
I'll give
Hey,
you
don't worry,
money.
we're gonna be here to answer questions.
Okay, oh.
Okay, another question, and I think this person needs to say, we're talking about, what would you do if you were involved on the ruling of Roe versus Wade? Is that something I can ask?
As a judicial candidate, just so you know, we're not trying to not or avoid answering certain questions, but we're bound under a code of ethics for the election process. We can't answer questions that may come before the court at a future date if we're a judicial officer. So something such as Roe versus Wade might come before us if we are elected to as a judge. So on those specific type of issues, we can't tell you how we feel. Or, as I said, we're not trying to skate the issue. It's just one of those things that we can't answer.
Unlike other elections, we actually have to take a course on judicial ethics to run. So any other candidate, they can come in and they can say whatever they want, tell you however they feel. We're precluded from doing so, and if we do, we can actually be sanctioned by the Judicial Ethics Commission even after the election. So they take it very, very seriously because justice is blind. We have to have neutral arbitrators, and we can't prejudge any set of facts or anything.
Okay. All right, I've got another homeless question. Okay, the homeless or the mentally ill. Are these people being released from mentally ill facilities? I don't know if you know that.
Prematurely?
I mean, well, I'm not trying to be facetious, but I don't even know if we have mentally ill facilities in the I like afterwards. And so the issue is, are they being released? Sure, because they're not getting the resources that they need. Those are gonna be questions for your local county officials to get the funding to those departments. That's not something that the judges control. Do we see the problem? Absolutely. Everybody sees the homeless problem and the mental health problems in this county and in this state. But those are left for your community officials and your state officials to work together to craft these plans. All we can do is deal with them on a fair and impartial basis when they get into the system. And I think what you're seeing is a lack of accountability, and we're gonna bring that accountability back. But as far as determining where resources go or what programs are created, that's not something that your judges do, that's something that your local officials do.
Okay, what time is it?
It's 10 to 7, we got plenty of time. Do you have that paper?
Okay, so I've asked all the questions. Does
What
anybody
about
else?
the paper? Did you read the paper? The white
Oh,
paper?
sorry. Oh, okay, yes. My son was killed on July 2021 by a reckless driver who had 15 moving violations until she ultimately ran a red light and hit my son's car and he died. The law states that it is possible gross vehicular manslaughter charge. This driver has a maximum sentence under California of 6 years. Of this, we were told it would probably be a 3 years sentence. My question to you as a judge in Riverside County is, how can this be justice for my son, the victim, in similar cases when somebody uses their car as a weapon and gets a minimal sentence for murder? You uphold the law, but can you, as a justice, fight for victims' rights and influence and change a law? Make a change to this.
So judges, again, we're not responsible for changing laws. All we can do is enforce the laws, the constitutions that we have. For sentencing, I think the state has seen a extreme swing to the other side when it comes to sentencing and when it comes to holding people accountable. We all believe in maximum sentences, and we all are intend to use that if the case calls for it. But on that case, I would just, is that a, whoever asked that question, is that a local case or is that?
They're right now, the warrant's out for her arrest. She hasn't been arrested yet, in 10 months. But they told us that it's only 6 years, and I just think, I want to be an advocate, I want to change that. I don't know how to change that. I think it's just wrong. I mean, she killed a person. You know, yeah, maybe talk to you later because you know that. But I just think that, you know, the justice system isn't always just, and so I'm worried about the judge I'm going to get.
I think that some of us are trying to put this in a correct way. I think that there's an apathy and a sense of just we're accepting things because it's existed for so long. And so even if it's 6, you're probably only gonna get 3. But that's your relationship with your district attorney handling that case to fight for more, and you get to fight for more, and you're looking at 4 candidates that would use this discretion in a public safety lens and, you know, use its discretion to determine the punishment in that case. But as far as getting higher sentences on types of crimes, that is something that goes through the legislation.
Okay, so those are all the questions, and we're gonna ask the candidates if they would stay behind a little bit, because it's not even 7 yet. And you can ask them, you know, like specific things, that way you can talk to them. But I was wondering if you all could give like a little, like just a end closing, you know, so we can close.
First of all, thank you again so much for coming out. You know, most of the time we've learned people just don't know who they're voting for judges. You get the pamphlet, everybody puts their best foot forward in it, and you think, okay, I don't know who they are or what they stand for. And we've really, really worked hard to change that. As a group, we've covered all 4 corners of the county, from Temecula through Norco, all the way out to Blythe and the Coachella Valley. We have made an effort to inform voters. And we have tried our best to let people know who we are, what we stand for. Our endorsements speak volumes. That tells you the kind of judges we will be. We will hold people accountable for their actions, but we'll also be fair. We will use our discretion and our power appropriately. have faith that you'll see that as well. The people who have supported us and endorsed us believe that we are the right candidates for the job, that we will bring justice to the citizens of Riverside County. So thank you so much for your time. It's an honor to come out and meet everybody, and just to show that you care keeps us going. We've been at events, we've had things on the schedule just about every day for the last 3 months. If not every day, at least every other day. But we're doing it because this matters. This election matters, and your judges matter. And we want you to know that we understand and appreciate you taking out of the time of your busy lives to come out and meet us. It really is my honor to be here and introduce myself to you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, I would agree. It's 100% an honor to have this opportunity to speak with you and introduce ourselves, because we too vote, we get the ballots, and we often don't know who's running for judge, or say for us at school board, no idea who's running for any of these positions, right? And we understand the significance of, especially a judge, the decisions that are made. And we've emphasized kind of the criminal background because that's what we know, right? All of us have been criminal lawyers for over 15 years. But judges decide your small claims decision. Judges decide, probate after someone dies, who gets what. Judges decide custody agreements and divorce matters. The experience and the temperament matters. And so that's why we wanted to come out and to everybody as much as we can in the county, introduce who we are and why we are the right fit for that position, given our experience level, which I believe is unmatched by our opponents. And we hope that we've earned your vote tonight.
I think it's really important to meet people face to face. I don't think you really get a good feel for a person unless you can look them in the eye and explain to them who you are. We're not running on any other platform than public safety and accountability and impartiality. And it doesn't matter what side you are. It doesn't matter what are you red, are you blue, or are you somewhere in between. Public safety should be something that we're all concerned with. And having that lens on the bench is so important and has been lacking for so long. Accountability is something that we have gotten complacent at, right? Because you feel like the whole world is against you, so what's the point? Maybe it's not the popular belief. Maybe accountability isn't what all the other judges want. And so at a certain point, we made this decision to try to represent this missing side. And that's nothing more, nothing less. We are for public safety. We are pro law enforcement. We are there to have a honest courtroom, open courtroom, one that we are not afraid to stand by our decisions, even if they are unpopular. And so we really, really appreciate this opportunity. Any more questions? All these questions were great. It's really, really good to get those questions and see what the concerns are, because I'll be honest, we don't know all the time. And so thank you so much for letting us come and speak with you and letting us meet you.
I just want to echo what Jason and Natalie and Christy said. It's been such an honor to come out and be able to meet you and talk to you and answer your great questions that you put before us. When we started this, it was all with the same mission. We wanted to get that balance back to that bench. And then we had a game plan. And Christy kind of took the bull by the horns and said, you know what, we're going to do this different. And under her leadership and her guidance, we decided that let's go out and meet as many people as we can, because we kept hearing that people didn't know who the judges were every time. We don't know who the judges were when they got their ballots. So we decided we're going to change that, and we're going to do the best we can to reach as many people as we can. It's been exhausting, tiring, nonstop, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I have been able to meet, and we've all met some of the most interesting, great people from Riverside County. And to have that opportunity has been such a life experience, it's unbelievable. And if we can take our backgrounds of our public safety and continue our public service in Riverside County, that's why we're going to do it. And that's why we're going to do it. And we're not going to rest until after the election. And I just want to thank you again for this wonderful opportunity to come before you.
Again, I want to thank you all for coming out on a weeknight. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to let everybody know that these judges are not not running against each other, you can vote for all of them, okay? Just wanna make sure that's, and then the second thing I wanna ask the potential judges is, will you be able to take questions outside and talk to some of these folks that have more intricate
Well, yeah, because we have time now, so if even staying here, please eat some of this, drink the coffee, the water, everything that I have to take home, if you don't. So yeah, if you don't mind staying around, if you can talk to them individually, I know some people have individual things, and so we'll let you do that now, so thank you again, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Just a question for you guys, are you civil, criminal, or do both?
So we're all criminal, but we can be put in any courtroom, and we all went through, I guess, all the schools, so,
And how many judges are there in Riverside County?
29 or 30, about 29 or 30.
There's about 75, but only 30 are up for election this time, and 26 of those ran unopposed as a clerk. So there's only 4 contested seats.
Yeah, we're gonna come.